Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. You know, Srila Prabhupada left India when he was, he left at 69, but he arrived in America at 70 because he came on a boat. Not just any boat, a cargo boat. And they had a special little cabin. And he met the owner of the company, the steamship company. She gave him a free ride over to America. And before he came, he spent 9 years in not seclusion exactly, but yes, by himself in Vrindavan, which at that time was very, very remote village, and completed by himself, without any electronic gizmos or gadgets, the first canto of this book that we're reading, the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Before he came to the West, he knew that he had to have something substantial in the hand. He had never been out of India before. Anybody who's been to India, what to speak of in India back in those days, that was 1960s. The difference between India and America was night and day. Still is in the villages, but in the big cities, you can hardly tell the difference. But then, he had this little old typewriter that he used. He typed like this with one hand. And he compiled and did all the work himself. Went to Delhi back and forth to get the paper and oversee the layout, old-fashioned type layout. And when it was all done, and he had 3 volumes published single-handedly, and then he went around India single-handedly and sold them to bookstores, universities, and wherever he could. And finally, when he was ready, he came with a plot, a plan. He called it his plot, but it was a plan to uplift human society by the mass distribution of his books. At that time, he had no one. He had no money. He had no contacts. He had no family in America. He just came to New York City cold. For a year, he just more or less strolled the streets and somehow or other maintained himself by selling his books to friends, bookstores, people that he met. And so he's invested in these books. His spiritual master told him, if you ever get any money, print books. So he didn't have any money, but he printed those first 3 books in India, practically, like I said, by himself. And when he got here, it took a long time, but gradually he got sincere young men who were seekers. There were a lot of us in those days, 60s in America. And the rest is history. And after that, 12 years, Hare Krishna Guru Priya, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hey Sarva. Hare Krishna. You look like you're bundled up. Did you come from Dallas? We heard about it, you know. So then, in 12 years, he went from having just 3 books to having 80 books and going around the world 14 times and initiating 5,000 disciples like me and installing deities and establishing 108 temples, exactly that number, which is a very auspicious number in our numerology. And so he got up at night when everyone else was sleeping, 12 o'clock. He would go to bed at 10 and get up at 12. Sometimes he'd get to bed later, but he would get up at 12 every night. And every night just chip away at it, you know. So in his heart, he was fully invested. This was his magnum opus, this Srimad-Bhagavatam. So it's filled with his knowledge and his wisdom and his potency. And now there's more than 800 temples and centers, and his mercy is flowing through these books, especially from his purports. So it's a great privilege to sit together like this and hear out loud Srila Prabhupada's books. So without further ado, we'll read a prayer that we recite every day before we read the Srimad-Bhagavatam. It was compiled by Srila Sanatana Goswami, who was the senior disciple of Lord Chaitanya when he was here, who actually inaugurated this Krishna consciousness movement in India 500 years ago. And Srila Sanatana Goswami was his senior disciple, and he spent more time, Lord Chaitanya spent more time with Sanatana Goswami instructing him than any other person on the planet. So this was his realization of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, the book that we're about to read. I'll read the Sanskrit and the English. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Sarpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwandoditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are all Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Mad Mahadana Mannishtadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu Saduta Dayin Atinicho Chata Kada Anamuncha Kadachin Mam Premnarit Kadayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we arrived at the 5th canto out of 12, 3rd chapter. We're going to be hearing the glories of Lord Rsabhadeva, an incarnation of Krishna that appeared many millions of years ago on this planet. Starting with text 13. Dear Lord, here is the great King Nabhi, whose ultimate goal in life is to have a son like you. Your Lordship, his position is like that of a person approaching a very rich man and begging for a little grain. Maharaj Nabhi is so desirous of having a son that he is worshipping you for a son, although you can offer him any exalted position, including elevation to the heavenly planets or liberation back to Godhead. Purport. The priests were a little ashamed that King Nabhi was performing a great sacrifice to ask the Lord's benediction for his son. The Lord could offer him promotion to the heavenly planets or the Vaikuntha planets. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught us how to approach the Supreme Lord and ask him for the ultimate benediction. He said, Nadanam najanam nasundarim kabitam ba jagadish kamaye. He did not want to ask the Supreme Lord for anything material. Material opulence means riches, a nice family, a good wife, and many followers. But an intelligent devotee does not ask the Supreme Lord for anything material. His only prayer is Mama Janmani Janmani Shvade Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahaituki Twayi. He wants to be engaged perpetually in the loving service of the Lord. He does not want promotion to the heavenly planets or mukti, liberation from material bondage. If this were the case, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not have said, Mama Janmani Janmani Shure, or Mami Janmani Janmani. It doesn't matter to a devotee whether or not he takes birth life after life, as long as he remains a devotee. Actually, eternal liberty means returning home back to Godhead. A devotee is never concerned about anything material. Although Nabhi Maharaj wanted a son like Vishnu, wanting a son like God is also a form of sense gratification. A pure devotee wants only to engage in the Lord's loving service. Text 14. Dear Lord, unless one worships the lotus feet of great devotees, one will be conquered by the illusory energy, and his intelligence will be bewildered. Indeed, who has not been carried away by the waves of material enjoyment, which are like poison? Your illusory energy is unconquerable. No one can see the path of this material energy or tell how it is working. Purport. Maharaj Nabhi was inclined to performing great sacrifices for begetting a son. The son might be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but such a material desire, be it great or insignificant, is brought about by the influence of Maya. A devotee does not at all desire anything for sense gratification. Devotion is therefore explained as devoid of material desires. Anyabhilashita shunya. Everyone is subjected to the influence of Maya and entangled in all kinds of material desire. And Maharaj Nabhi was no exception. Freedom from Maya's influence is possible when one engages in the service of the great devotees, Mahach Charana Seva. Without worshipping the lotus feet of a great devotee, one cannot be freed from Maya's influence. Srila Narottam Das Thakur therefore says, Chadya Vaishnava Seva Nishtara Paye Chekeba. One who has been freed from Maya's clutches without serving. Who has been freed from Maya's clutches without serving the lotus feet of a Vaishnava? Maya is aparajita, and her influence is also aparajita, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:14. Daivyesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. Only a devotee can surpass Maya's great influence. It was no fault on Maharaj Nabhi's part that he wanted a son. He wanted a son like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the best of all sons. By the association of the Lord's devotee, one no longer desires material opulence. This is confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22:54. Sarusanga, Sarusanga, Sarva Shastra Koi, Lavamatra Sarusange, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Mahat Kripa Vinadoha Karme Bhakti Naya, Krishna Bhakti Duri Rahu Sangsaranahe Chaya. If one is serious about escaping Maya's influence and returning home back to Godhead, one must associate with the sadhu, devotee. That is the verdict of all scriptures. By the slight association of a devotee, one can be freed from the clutches of Maya. Without the mercy of the pure devotee, one cannot get freedom by any means. Certainly a pure devotee's association is necessary in order to obtain the loving service of the Lord. One cannot be freed from Maya's clutches without sadhusanga, the benediction of a great devotee. In Srimad-Bhagavatam 7.532, Prahlad Maharaj says, Naisham metis tavat urukramangrim sprishat yanartha pagamo yadartaha mahi yasang pararajo pishekam niskinchananam namritit nanivrityavat. One cannot become the Lord's devotee, pure devotee, without taking the dust of a great devotee on his head. Pada rajo pishekam. A pure devotee is nishkinchana. He has no material desire to enjoy the material world. One has to take shelter of such a great devotee in order to attain his qualities. The pure devotee is always free from the clutches of Maya and her influence. Text 15. O Lord, you perform many wonderful activities. Our only aim was to acquire a son by performing this great sacrifice. Therefore, our intelligence is not very sharp. We are not experienced in ascertaining life's goal. By inviting you to this negligible sacrifice for some material motive, we have certainly committed a great offense at your lotus feet. Therefore, O Lord of Lords, please excuse our offense because of your causeless mercy and equal mind. Purport. The priests were certainly unhappy to have called the Supreme Lord from Vaikuntha for such an insignificant reason. A pure devotee never wants to see the Lord unnecessarily. The Lord is engaged in various activities, and the pure devotee does not want to see him whimsically for his own sense gratification. The pure devotee simply depends on the Lord's mercy, and when the Lord is pleased, he can see him face to face. The Lord is unseen even by demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. By calling on the Supreme Lord, the priests of Nabhi Maharaj proved themselves unintelligent. Nonetheless, the Lord came out of his causeless mercy. All of them, therefore, wanted to be excused by the Lord. Worship of the Supreme Lord for material gain is not approved by authorities. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.16, Chatur Bida Bhajante Mam Janak Sukrutunorjuna Arto Jigyasra Artharti Jnanicha Bharatarshaba. O best among the Bharats, Arjuna, 4 kinds of pious men render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the Absolute. Initiation into bhakti begins when one is in a distressed condition, or in want of money, or when one is inquisitive to understand the absolute truth. Nonetheless, people who approach the Supreme Lord in this way are not actually devotees. They are accepted as pious, sukritina, due to their inquiring about the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not knowing the various activities and engagements of the Lord, such people unnecessarily disturb the Lord for material gain. However, the Lord is so kind that even though disturbed, he fulfills the desires of such beggars. The pure devotee is anyabhilashita shunya. He has no motive behind his worship. He is not conducted by the influence of Maya in the form of karma or jnana. The pure devotee is always prepared to execute the order of the Lord without personal consideration. The Ritvija, the priests at sacrifice, knew very well the distinction between karma and bhakti, and because they considered themselves under the influence of karma, fruit of activity, they begged the Lord's pardon. They knew that the Lord had been invited to come for some paltry reason. Text 16. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, the priests who were even worshipped by King Nabhi, the emperor of Bharatavarsha, offered prayers in prose, generally they were in poetry, and bowed down at the Lord's lotus feet. The Lord of Lords, the ruler of the demigods, was very pleased with them, and he began to speak as follows. Text 17. The Supreme Personality of Godhead replied, O great sages, I am certainly very pleased with your prayers. You are all truthful. You have prayed for the benediction of a son like me for King Nabhi, but this is very difficult to obtain, since I am the Supreme Person without a second, and since no one is equal to me, another personality like me is not possible to find. In any case, because you are all qualified brahmanas, your vibration should not prove untrue. I consider the brahmanas who are well qualified with brahminical qualities to be as good as my own mouth. We can turn this off. It's a little cool for that. Thanks. Purport. The word avitata girbi means they whose spoken vibrations cannot be nullified. The brahmanas, dvija, the twice-born, are given a chance by the Shastric regulations to become almost as powerful as the Supreme Lord. Whatever a brahmana speaks cannot be nullified or changed in any circumstance. According to the Vedic injunctions, a brahmana is the mouth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, in all rituals, a brahmana is offered food, brahmana bhojana, because when a brahmana eats, it is considered that the Supreme Lord himself eats. Similarly, whatever a brahmana speaks cannot be changed. It must act. The learned sages who were priests at Maharaj Nabhi's sacrifice were not only brahmanas, but were so qualified that they were like devas, demigods, or God himself. Hare Krishna. If this were not so the case, how could they invite Lord Vishnu to come to the sacrificial arena? God is one, and God does not belong to this or that religion. In Kali Yuga, different religions, different religious sects consider their God to be different from the God of others. But that is not possible. God is one, and He is appreciated according to different angles of vision. In this verse, the word Kaivalyat means that God has no competitor. There is only one God. In the Shvetashvatar Upanishad 6.8, it is said, Natat samash cha vyatikash tadrishyate. No one is found to be equal to him or greater than him. That is the definition of God. Text 18. Since I cannot find anyone equal to me, I shall personally expand myself into a plenary portion, and thus advent myself in the womb of Merudevi, the wife of Maharaj Nabhi, the son of Agnidra. Purport. This is an example of the omnipotence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although He is one without a second, He expands Himself by Shwangsa, His personal expansion, and sometimes by Bibhinangsha, or His separated expansion. Lord Vishnu herein agrees to send His personal expansion as the son of Merudevi, the wife of Maharaj Nabhi, who is the son of Agnidra. The Ritvija, the priests, knew that God is one Yet they prayed for the Supreme Lord to become the son of Maharaj Nabhi, to let the world know that the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is one without a second. When he incarnates, he expands himself in different potencies. Text 19. Shukadev Goswami continued. After saying this, the Lord disappeared. The wife of King Nabhi, Queen Merudevi, was sitting by the side of her husband, and consequently she could hear everything the Supreme Lord had spoken. Purport. According to the Vedic injunctions, one should perform sacrifices in the company of one's own wife. Sapatniko dharmam acharet. Religious rituals should be performed with one's wife. Therefore, Maharaj Nabhi conducted his great sacrifice with his wife by his side. Text 20. O Vishnu Datta, Parikshit Maharaj, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was pleased by the great sages at that sacrifice. Consequently, the Lord decided to personally exhibit the method of executing religious principles, as observed by brahmacharis, sannyasis, vanaprasthas, and grihasthas engaged in rituals, and also satisfy Maharaj Nabhi's desire. Consequently, he appeared as the son of Merudevi in his original spiritual form, which is above the modes of material nature. Purport. When the Supreme Lord appears or descends as an incarnation within this material world, he does not accept a body made of the three modes of material nature: Sattva-guna, Rajaguna, and Tamaguna. Mayavadi philosophers say that the impersonal God appears in this material world by accepting a body in the Sattva-guna. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti states that the word Shukla means consisting of Shuddha Sattva. Lord Vishnu descends in his Shuddha Sattva form. Shuddha Sattva refers to the Sattva Guna, which is never contaminated. In this material world, even the mode of goodness, Sattva Guna, is contaminated by tinges of Rajaguna and Tamaguna. When Sattva Guna is never contaminated by Rajaguna and Tamaguna, it is called Shuddha Sattva. Satmam Bishudam Vasudeva Shabditam. Bhagavatam 4.3.23. That is the platform of Vasudeva, whereby the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, can be experienced. In Bhagavad Gita 4.7, Sri Krishna himself says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam dharmasya tadatmanam srijam yaham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of your religion, at that time I descend myself. Unlike ordinary living entities, the Supreme Lord is not forced by the modes of material nature to appear. He appears dharman darshayitud kama, to show how to execute the functions of a human being. The word dharma is meant for human beings and is never used in connection with beings inferior to human beings, such as animals. Unfortunately, without being guided by the Supreme Lord, human beings sometimes manufacture a process of dharma by concoction. Actually, dharma cannot be made by man. Dharmam tu sakshad bhagavat pranitam. Bhagavatam 6.3.19. Dharma is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as the law is given by the state government. Man-made dharma has no meaning. Srimad Bhagavatam refers to man-made dharma as kaitava dharma, cheating religion. The Supreme Lord sends an avatar, incarnation, to teach human society the proper way to execute religious principles. Such religious principles are Bhakti Marg. As the Supreme Lord Himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharman Parityaja Mamikam Sharanam Braja. Bhagavad Gita 1866. The son of Maharaj Nabhi, Rsabhadeva, appeared on this earth to preach the principles of religion. That will be explained in the 5th chapter of this 5th canto. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 3rd chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Rsabhadeva's appearance in the womb of Merudevi, the wife of King Nabhi. Okay, another act in the drama. Now we go to the next act. The unfolding of the history of the universe according to the appearances of the different incarnations of the Supreme Lord. Chapter 4. The characteristics of Rsabhadeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Summary. In this chapter, Rsabhadeva, the son of Maharaj Nabhi, begot 100 sons, and during the reign of those sons, the world was very happy in all respects. When Rsabhadeva appeared as the son of Maharaj Nabhi, he was appreciated by the people as the most exalted and beautiful personality of that age. His poise, influence, strength, enthusiasm, bodily luster, and other transcendental qualities were beyond compare. The word Rishabha refers to the best or the supreme. Due to the super excellent attributes of the son of Maharaj Nabhi, the king named his son Rsabhadeva, or the best. His influence was incomparable. Although there was a scarcity of rain, Rsabhadeva did not care for Indra, the king of heaven, who was in charge of supplying rain. Through his own potency, Rsabhadeva sumptuously covered Ajanaba with ample rain. Upon receiving Rsabhadeva, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as his son, King Nabhi began to raise him very carefully. After that, he entrusted the ruling power to him, and retiring from family life, lived at Badrik Ashram, completely engaged in the worship of Vasudeva, the Supreme Lord. To follow social customs, Lord Rsabhadeva for a while became a student of the Gurukula, and after returning, he followed the orders of his guru and accepted a wife named Jayanti, who had been given to him by the king of heaven, Indra. He begot 100 sons in the womb of Jayanti. Of these 100 sons, the eldest was known as Bharat. Since the reign of Maharaj Bharat, this planet has been called Bharatvarsha. Rsabhadeva's other sons were headed by Kushavarta, Ilavarta, Brahmavarta, Malya, Ketu, Bhadrasena. I bet they didn't have those up in the mountains. You missed me. I bet they didn't have that up in the mountains. I bet you didn't miss it either. We call it the conch shell of Maya, the conch shell of illusion. Yeah. Come over here. Use what we have, this oil, in order to enjoy and forget us. So the Bharatvarsha, very interesting, because just even today on the rupee, you will see Bharatvarsha written. Did you know that? Yes, on the rupee and on all the governmental, logos and all those kinds of things, you will see Bharatvarsha. Since the reign of Maharaj Bharata, this planet has been called Bharatvarsha. Rsabhadeva's other sons were headed by Kushavarta, and I said those. Rsabhadeva's other sons were headed by Kushavarta, Ilarvarta, Brahmavarta, Malaya, Ketu, Bhadrasena, Indrasprik, Vidarbha, and Kikata. There were also other sons named Kavi, Havi, Antariksha, Prabuddha, Pipalayana, Avirhotra, Drumala, Chamasa, and Karabhajan. Instead of ruling the kingdom, these 9 became mendicant preachers of Krishna consciousness, following the religious precepts of the Bhagavatam. Their characteristics and activities are described in the 11th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam during the talks between Vasudeva and Narada at Kurukshetra. To teach the general populace, King Rsabhadeva performed many sacrifices and taught his sons how to rule the citizens. Text 1. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, as soon as the Lord was born as the son of Maharaj Nabhi, he manifested symptoms of the Supreme Lord, such as marks on the bottoms of his feet, the flag, thunderbolt, etc. This son was equal to everyone and very peaceful. He could control his senses and his mind, and, possessing all opulence, he did not hanker for material enjoyment. Endowed with all these attributes, the son of Maharaj Nabhi became more powerful day after day. Due to this, the citizens, learned brahmanas, demigods, and ministers wanted Rsabhadeva to be appointed ruler of the earth. Purport. In these days of cheap incarnations, it is very interesting to note the bodily symptoms found in an incarnation. From the very beginning of his birth, it was observed that Rsabhadeva's feet were marked with the transcendental signs, a flag, thunderbolt, lotus flower, etc. In addition to this, as the Lord began to grow, he became very prominent. He was equal to everyone. He did not favor one person and neglect another. An incarnation of God must have the 6 opulences: wealth, strength, knowledge, beauty, fame, and renunciation. It is said that although Rsabhadeva was endowed with all opulences, he was not at all attached to material enjoyment. He was self-controlled and therefore liked by everyone. Due to his super excellent qualities, everyone wanted him to rule the earth. An incarnation of God has to be accepted by experienced people and by the symptoms described in the Shastras. An incarnation is not accepted simply by the adulation of foolish people. Text 2. When the son of Maharaj Nabhi became visible, he evinced all good qualities described by the great poets, namely a well-built body with all the symptoms of the Godhead: prowess, strength, beauty, name, fame, influence, and enthusiasm. When the father, Maharaj Nabhi, saw all these qualities, he thought his son to be the best of human beings, or the Supreme Being. Therefore he gave him the name Rishabha. Purport. To accept someone as God or an incarnation of God, one must observe the symptoms of God in his body. All these symptoms were found in the body of Maharaj Nabhi's extraordinarily powerful son. His body was well structured, and he displayed all the transcendental qualities. He showed great influence, and he could control his mind and senses. Consequently, he was named Rishabha, which indicates that he was the Supreme Living Being. Text 3. Indra, the king of heaven, who was very materially opulent, became envious of King Rsabhadeva. Consequently, he stopped pouring water on the planet known as Bhartavarsha. At that time, the Supreme Lord, Rsabhadeva, the master of all mystic power, understood King Indra's purpose and smiled a little. Then, by his own prowess, through Yogamaya, his internal potency, he profusely poured water upon his own place, which was known as Ajanabha. Purport. We find the word Bhagavan used twice in this verse. Both King Indra and Rsabhadeva, the incarnation of the Supreme Lord, are described as Bhagavan. Sometimes Narada and Brahma are also addressed as Bhagavan. The word Bhagavan means that one is a very opulent and powerful person, like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Narada, or Indra. They are all addressed as Bhagavan due to their extraordinary opulence. King Rsabhadeva is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord, and therefore he was the original Bhagavan. Consequently, he is described herein as Yogeshwara, which indicates that he has the most powerful spiritual potency. He is not dependent on King Indra for water. He can supply water himself, and he did so in this case. In Bhagavad Gita it is stated, Yagyad Bhavati Parjanya, Bhagavad Gita 3:14. Due to the performance of yajna, clouds of water are manifest in the sky. Clouds and rainfall are under the management of Indra, the heavenly king. But when Indra is neglectful, the Supreme Lord himself, who is also known as Yajna or Yagyapati, takes the task upon himself. Consequently, there was sufficient rainfall in the place named Ajanaba. When Yagyapati wants to, he can do anything without the help of any subordinate. Therefore, the Supreme Lord is known as Almighty. In the present age of Kali, there will eventually be a great scarcity of water, anavrishti, for the general populace, due to ignorance and the scarcity of yajna ingredients, will neglect to perform yajnas. I'll read that again. In the present age of Kali, there will eventually be a great scarcity of water, anavrishti, for the general populace, due to ignorance and the scarcity of yajna ingredients, will neglect to perform yajnas. Srimad-Bhagavatam therefore advises, Yagyai Sankirtana Prayar Yajantihi Sumedasaha. After all, yajna is meant to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this age of Kali, there's great scarcity and ignorance. Nonetheless, everyone can perform Sankirtan Yajna. Every family and every society can conduct Sankirtan Yajna at least every evening. In this way, there will be no disturbance or scarcity of rain. It is essential for the people in this age to perform the Sankirtan Yajna in order to be materially happy and to advance spiritually. Text 4. Due to getting a perfect son, according to his desire, King Nabhi was always overwhelmed with transcendental bliss and was very affectionate to his son. It was with ecstasy and a faltering voice that he addressed him, "My dear son, my darling." This mentality was brought about by Yogamaya, whereby he accepted the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Father, as his own son. Out of his supreme goodwill, the Lord became his son and dealt with everyone as if he were an ordinary human being. Thus King Nabhi began to raise his transcendental son with great affection, and he was overwhelmed with transcendental bliss, joy, and devotion. Purport. The word Maya is used in the sense of illusion. Considering the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be his own son, Maharaj Nabhi was certainly an illusion, but this was transcendental illusion. This illusion is required. Otherwise, how can one accept the Supreme Father as his own son? The Supreme Lord appears as the son of one of his devotees, just as Lord Krishna appeared as the son of Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. These devotees could never think of their son as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for such appreciation would hamper their relationship of parental love. Text 5. King Nabhi understood that his son, Rsabhadeva, was very popular among the citizens and among government officers and ministers. Understanding the popularity of his son, Maharaj Nabhi enthroned him as the emperor of the world to give protection to the general populace in terms of the Vedic religious system. To do this, he entrusted him into the hands of learned brahmanas, who would guide him in administering the government. Then Maharaj Nabhi and his wife Merudevi went to Badarikashram in the Himalaya mountains, where the king engaged himself very expertly in austerities and penances with great jubilation. In full samadhi, he worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, who is Krishna in his plenary expansion. By doing so in course of time, Maharaj Nabhi was elevated to the spiritual world known as Vaikuntha. Purport. When Maharaj Nabhi saw that his son Rsabhadeva was popular with the general populace and the governmental servants, he chose to install him on the imperial throne. In addition, he wanted to entrust his son into the hands of the learned brahmanas. This means that a monarch was supposed to govern strictly according to Vedic principles under the guidance of learned brahmanas, who could advise him according to the standard Vedic scriptures like Manusmriti and similar shastras. It is the duty of the king to rule the citizens according to Vedic principles. According to Vedic principles, society is divided into 4 categories: Brahmana, Vaishya, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Chaturvarnya mayashrestam gunakarma vibhagashaha. Bhagavad Gita 4.13. After dividing society in this way, it is the king's duty to see that everyone executes Vedic principles according to his caste. A Brahmana must perform the duty of a Brahmana without cheating the public. It is not that one attains the name of a Brahmana without the qualifications. It is the king's duty to see that everyone engages in his occupational duty according to Vedic principles. In addition, retirement at the end of life is compulsory. Maharaj Nabhi, although still a king, retired from family life and went with his wife to a place called Badarikashram in the Himalayas, where the deity Narayan is worshipped. The words prasanna nipunena tapasa indicates that the king accepted all kinds of austerity very expertly and jubilantly. He did not at all mind leaving his comfortable life at home, although he was the emperor. Despite undergoing severe austerities and penances, he felt very pleased at Badarikashram, and he did everything there expertly. In this way, being fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, Samadhi Yoga, always thinking of Krishna, Vasudeva, Maharaj Nabhi attained success at the end of his life and was promoted to the spiritual world, Vaikuntha Loka. This is the way of Vedic life. One must stop the process of repeated birth and death and return home, back to Godhead. The words Tan Mahimanam Avapa are significant in this regard. Srila Sridhar Swami says that Mahima means liberation in this life. We should act in such a way in this life that after giving up this body, we will become liberated from the bondage of repeated birth and death. This is called Jivan Mukta. Srila Viraraghava Acharya states that in the Chandogya Upanishad there are 8 symptoms of a Jivan Mukta, a person who is already liberated even when living in this body. The first symptom of one so liberated is that he is freed from all sinful activity, apahatta papa. As long as one is under the clutches of Maya, in the material energy, one has to engage in sinful activity. Bhagavad Gita describes such people as dushkritina, which indicates that they are always engaged in sinful activity. One who is liberated in this life does not commit any sinful activities. Sinful activity involves illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. Another symptom of a liberated person is bijara, which indicates that he is not subjected to the miseries of old age. Another symptom is vimityu. A liberated person prepares himself in such a way that he does not take on any more material bodies, which are destined to die. In other words, he does not fall down again to repeated birth and death. Another symptom is vishoka, which indicates that he is callous to material distress. Another symptom is vishoka, which indicates that he is callous to material distress and happiness. Another is vijigatsa, which indicates that he no longer desires material enjoyment. Another symptom is apipata, which means that he has no desire other than to engage in the devotional service of Krishna, his dearmost pursuable Lord. A further symptom is satyakama, which indicates that all his desires are directed to the Supreme Truth, Krishna. He does not want anything else. He is satya sankalpa. Whatever he desires is fulfilled by the grace of Krishna. First of all, he does not desire anything for his material benefit. And secondly, if he desires anything at all, he simply desires to serve the Supreme Lord. That desire is fulfilled by the Lord's grace. That is called Satya Sankalpa. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti points out that the word Mahima means returning to the spiritual world, back home, back to Vaikuntha. Sri Shukadev says that the word Mahima means that the devotee attains the qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is called Sadharma, or the same quality. Just as Krishna is never born and never dies, his devotees who return to Godhead never die and never take birth within the material world. Text 6. O Maharaj Parikshit, to glorify Maharaj Nabhi, the old sages composed 2 verses. One of them is this: who can attain the perfection of Maharaj Nabhi? Who can attain his activities? Because of his devotional service, the Supreme Personality of Godhead agreed to become his son. Purport. The words Shuddhena Karmana are significant in this verse. If work is not carried out in devotional service, it is contaminated by the modes of material nature. That is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Yagyarthat karmanonyatra lokoyam karmabandhanaha. Bhagavad Gita 3:9. Activities performed only for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord are pure and are not contaminated by the modes of material nature. All other activities are contaminated by the modes of ignorance and passion, as well as goodness. All material activities meant for satisfying the senses are contaminated, and Maharaj Nabhi did not perform anything contaminated. He simply executed his transcendental activities even when performing yajna. Consequently, he obtained the Supreme Lord as his son. The second prayer is this: who is a better worshipper of Brahmanas than Maharaj Nabhi? Because he worshipped the qualified Brahmanas to their full satisfaction, the Brahmanas, by their Brahminical prowess, showed Maharaj Nabhi the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, in person. Purport. The Brahmanas engaged as priests in the sacrificial ceremony were not ordinary Brahmanas. They were so powerful that they could bring forth the Supreme Personality of Godhead by their prayers. Thus Maharaj Nabhi was able to see the Lord face to face. Unless one is a Vaishnava, he cannot call forth the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord does not accept an invitation unless one is a Vaishnava. Therefore it is said in Padma Purana, Shat Karma Nipunau Vipro Mantra Tantra Visharadaha Avaishnavo Gurur Nasyad Vaishnava Shapacho Guruhu. A scholarly Brahmana, expert in all subjects of Vedic knowledge, is unfit to become a spiritual master without being a Vaishnava. But a person born in a family of a lower caste can become a spiritual master if he is a Vaishnava. These Brahmanas were certainly very expert in chanting the Vedic mantras. They were competent in the performance of the Vedic rituals, and over and above this they were Vaishnavas. Therefore, by their spiritual powers, they could call upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead and enable their disciple, Maharaj Nabhi, to see the Lord face to face. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that the word ojasa means by dint of devotional service. And we'll stop our reading today. It's about an hour. And we now have what we call an open mic session. Anyone who heard something that perked their ears or stuck in their minds can reflect, or wow, Sarva, you got the thing quickly. Oh.
Seems like out of humility, this great King Nabhi at first thought that it was kind of a material desire to have a son, but then it was shown that Nabhi was very elevated and his son was indeed an incarnation of the Lord. So I guess my question would be, usually when someone is a parent and has a child, a son or a daughter, through that child, they kind of want to fulfill their desires, and they're not always pure devotees themselves. So I've heard that I think from Chanakya Pandit, that he said that a parent should guide the child very carefully up to a certain age and then become like a friend. And I wanted to know, what is the idea of becoming a friend rather than for a parent of a child, rather than, because they see the child grew up from very small and they feel like they can kind of guide and protect the child all the time, whereas a friend is more neutral.
Well, it's human psychology that after a child grows to a certain... There's two parts of your eloquent question, which is full of knowledge, by the way. Your questions are always full of knowledge. Thank you for your question. The first part of your question is, how is it that Nabhi, and the Brahmanas, or Nabhi, could ask for a son and get the Supreme Personality of God, or something like that? Well, Nabhi was not an ordinary person. He appeared from the womb of a apsara, like a demigoddess, and therefore he was particularly pious and intelligent. So he wanted to have a son because it is a natural desire of one who is in knowledge to have a son, because if he happens not to perfect his life and goes to some other place other than the spiritual world, then the son can offer a pinda or shraddha ceremony and therefore help him in his onward spiritual progress. That's the Vedic system. So because the Brahmanas were, as it says in the purports, not ordinary in the verses, they were very powerful. So when the Lord appeared in the sacrifice itself, as a result of the purity of the Brahmana's sacrifice, and Nabhi saw the son of the Lord, then he said, "Oh, I want a son like you." So that's why the Lord agreed, because he said, "Well, actually, there is no one like me." So you caught me. In a way, he's saying, "You caught me," because he was a great devotee himself. So the Lord appears as a devotee's son because of his pure devotion and his desire to become his son. And that way, the Lord, although he's a source of adulation and worship and in general reverence, allows the devotee to treat him like the son, because he likes that. Krishna likes all the different mellows and loving exchanges and relationships. He likes it better when a person treats him like a son than a father. Because the father, what are you doing? Give me, mommy, daddy, give me. That's no fun. So, but when Krishna becomes the son, then the devotee is always trying to give him, and and serve him in a more intimate way, in prayers and loving exchanges and conversations. He likes those prayers better than he likes the elevated Vedic hymns for worshipping Vaikuntha, not by worshipping the Lord of Vaikuntha. So that's kind of one part of what you said. And the second part, it's human nature that, in materially speaking, when the son and daughter come, especially the son, come to a certain age, then they want to be their own, is it not? We have a perfect example here. We have father and mother and son right in the room, so we can ask them a question. Is it not the nature that after a certain age, if you keep treating the son like they're 5 years old, parents do that, and even if the son becomes very elevated, the parents sometimes think it's just my baby. So, I remember my mother, once I started to excel, I kind of excelled in certain things, and my mom didn't want me to become proud, so she would try to kind of keep me mediocre so that I wouldn't become proud, but I excelled anyway. I'm going to do this anyway, And that's the nature of material existence in human society, So, therefore, it's very special when Krishna agrees to appear as the son of someone, because then that the parent gets to experience all the spectrum of emotions, only purely spiritual, because it's all in connection with Krishna. So it's a combination of all those things. Yes, Honest John is going to answer an honest question, ask an honest question, or give us some knowledge.
Well, I just thought it was. It says in the first part that we read here, God is one, and He is appreciated according to different angles of vision. And it kind of goes, in Kali Yuga, different religious sects consider God to be different from the God of others, but that is not possible. God is one. He is appreciated according to different angles of vision. And then this verse or this story kind of reminded me of Jesus, and even Merudevi as Mary. Even sounds the same, and it was like not exactly the same, but definitely some parallels to that story.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ and this and this.
Yes.
So I thought that was pretty excellent. I like that.
Interesting. I just read an article in the Dandavats where this very erudite devotee gave all these different examples of Sanskrit dhatus. Dhatu is a root. Sanskrit's got a certain number of dhatus, roots, and then they combine them together to make all the words and the thoughts and everything. And there's so many dhatus that correspond to the same sounds and the same meanings in all the languages of the world. It's one way that an etymologist can conclude that Sanskrit is the mother tongue, unless they're envious. Especially if they're Greek and envious. Because they want everything to come from Greek, from Greece. I read another book. You might be interested in this book, because you're a geologist, a scientist. There's a book written by one of my godbrothers, very dear godbrother of mine, Devamrita Swami, and he wrote a book called Searching for Vedic India. Very interesting, because he puts together many, many trains of thought through different sciences and how they, some of them try to cover the Sanskrit literatures and make them younger than they are, so they can come after Greeks or some other language. And some of them are trying to do just the opposite and come to the point where Sanskrit is, proven to be the... But the problem is that in the academic world, there's layers upon layers upon layers of research. And if there's something done that's not quite right in the beginning, then that mistake gets covered by all these correct calculations, and it's very hard to unpeel it, especially in the peer groups that have to do with approving people, their PhD dissertations in different subjects. Very interesting book. You might like it. It's called Searching for Vedic India. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yes, Hannah.
There's a question from cyberspace.
Oh.
From Krishna Katha Das.
Oh. Remember Krishna Katha?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you for reading day after day. Question. If King Nabhi had Krishna already as his son as Rsabhadeva, why did he retire to Badrik Ashram? Did he do this to show how to follow the Varnashram system, or did he have more desires to fulfill?
It's the, everyone in the actual human society, no matter what position they're in, they always try to do things expertly and perfectly. And because in the life of a ruler, in order to fulfill their spiritual destinies, they're meant to detach themselves from control and the opulence and the style of life, in order to be able to detach themselves to go back to the spiritual world. That's the Vedic system. Oh, if we only had the Vedic system today. Instead of having cheaters hanging on to the positions to the very last breath until they'll either die or get, pulled out by the, by the seat of their pants by some group of, dissatisfied people.
So retirement was a way to become more religious.
Yes. Yes. No, they were. Nabhi was religious all along.
I mean, to stop your material world and to go
Yes.
up to the mountain.
Yes.
More religious.
Yes. Yes. Just like you had a tendency to go to the mountain.
Yeah.
You're a little older, you want to go to the mountain. It's natural. In the West, we get a Winnebago, and then and drive around to Yosemite and the Alps or wherever you happen to be, and enjoy, you know.
It's retirement.
Yeah, sitting out, and you got a nice little settee, and you got a little thing that awning that goes out from it, and you can sit there in a nice sitting thing, and little, you know, stoves and everything. But they didn't have all those things. They just went to. But the natural tendency is to retire after. Yeah, that's why they have a law in all human societies after a certain age. Of course, nowadays it's getting harder because you can't save because, you know, the prices are going up and you know, wages are either staying the same or going down. It's a big problem, and a lot of people are thinking about it and talking about it, wanting to do something about it. But unfortunately, there's just a few people who are getting more and more of the resources, more and more of the power, and it's harder to do something about it. Let's see. I mean, the American
people don't know what to do in retirement.
Yeah.
They're lost souls because they don't have their work anymore, and they don't know to maybe go down more of a spiritual path.
Amen, brother. You got it. You got it. That's exactly right. That's why this book is so important, because, you know, in Eastern tradition or spiritual tradition, we'll say, the tendency is to not want to do something new all the time, but they want to perfect what they do. Like take music, Western music versus Indian classical music, and Western classical music. You know, to an American ear, sometimes Indian classical music sounds repetitive, because it's the same theme and modulation, but they're nuanced, and they're nuanced, and they're nuanced, and they're nuanced to the point where if you watch a sophisticated Indian audience, they're going, oh yes, in American ears, what's that? It's just the same thing I just heard, you know, because they can't hear the difference, you know. But so it's like that. The more we follow spiritual religious principles and elevate ourselves to the mode of goodness, then the more sensitive our senses and minds become, and are able to appreciate more and more subtle things. Therefore, these kings, they weren't, when the word was used in the verse itself, jubilant. They went to the forest and they were practically had nothing, but they were so absorbed in samadhi, because samadhi means trance, means full absorption in the supreme absolute truth. And somebody was saying, maybe it was, I can't remember who said it, but you know, there's from different angles of vision, God is realized from different angles of vision from different groups of people. And the reason for that is that they have different capacities for hearing, you know. Like you're a geologist, so at the beginning of the study of geology, there's certain things you had to learn. But once you learn those, then you can go deeper and deeper into the subject. And they wouldn't allow a person who's got a PhD in geology to go back and take the first course, you know. For him it would be, and for the teacher and for the students it wouldn't be fair in some ways. And it would be boring for the person also. Yeah, so, you know, the absolute substantive truth is known in three basic features, although there's many varieties within those categories. But it's three basic features: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. But all those features are emanating from Bhagavan, from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, you're a scientist, you can get this. The products of a source cannot have greater information content than the source. It's not possible. That would be against the law of physics, chemistry, biology, everything. So it really doesn't make sense to come to the conclusion, as Darwin did, that everything came from something simple and then, you know, produced more and more complicated things. I mean, even one of the basic principles of physics, entropy, is that if you leave something long enough in time, it doesn't become more and more organized. It goes, into chaos. It goes into entropy, it goes into chaos. And eventually it disintegrates.
Yeah. If you observe, now just the act of observing it makes it move.
Yes.
In quantum.
Yes. Yes.
So
And
what is the difference between, is it Brahman and Dharma? Is that the same?
No, Dharma is
Isn't
the
that the life force? The
no
universe?
Dharma is the law that if you follow it, then you'll get to Brahma.
Oh, okay.
Dharma is
Dharma's not the force then.
no Dharma is the law. It's the laws of nature. The spiritual laws of nature is called Dharma. Another way of looking at Dharma is it's not faith. Sometimes ordinary scholars, they translate the word Dharma as religion, but it doesn't mean religion, because religion means a kind of faith, and you can change your religion. One, you can be a Muslim and change to a Christian, or Christian and change to a Hindu, or and vice versa, or be a Buddhist and change to a Christian, or vice versa. So these religious concepts and faith are actually temporary. They're not the actual thing. The actual thing is love of God. The actual thing is service, because that's the one thing that's common to everyone. All living beings are serving in some capacity, in some way or another. It's like, so that's the constitutional position of a living being. Just as that's Dharma. And then if you add another word, because Sanskrit has different words that you connect them together to mean things. And then Sanatan is a word that means eternal. So Sanatan Dharma means the eternal constitutional position of something, such as sugar is sweet. You know, if I gave you some powder, have some sugar, and you touch it on your tongue, and it tastes like acidic. You'd say, this isn't. And if you're very bad luck, it's going to be something else, and you'll be dead. But anyway, it's not sugar. You know, the dharma of water is liquidity.
It's the law of it,
Yes.
the physical.
The constitutional position of it, that you can't, the thing that you can't take away from it.
Right.
So dharma is the law of God. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Dharmam means dharma, the law. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat. It comes from the God. You can't make up, just like you can't make up a law in a state. The legislators make up the law. Of course, the legislators nowadays, the laws are like nuts. But the laws of God are built in, and they're.
That's why in the passage today it said you can't create it.
Yes.
It can't be made.
Exactly. Can't be manufactured.
Right.
Just like, I lived in England for a long time. So in England, they drive their car on the opposite side of the road. When I was first there, I'd get reoriented because everything looked like it was going the opposite. It kind of threw me off a little bit for a while. So if I go on the wrong side of the road over there and say, yeah, but in America they drive on this side, that's too bad. You got to pay $100 or 100 quid. They say in England, 100 quid, and that'll be 100 quid, please. So you can't get away with breaking the law of God any more than you can get away with. But as we were saying before, that law of God is manifested in different degrees, to different groups of people by representatives of God according to what they can hear. The culture, the yes, exactly. The culture, the habits, the ability that they have to understand their habits, their cultural habits. Some are higher and some are lower. Some are more sophisticated, some are less sophisticated. I think even in the Bible there's one passage where Jesus says, I could tell you more things, but you can't understand them now, so I won't even try. Let those who have ears hear.
It's like the Roman Catholic Church interpreted the word of Jesus and God.
Yes, exactly.
Whole
Exactly. In the original Aramaic, it's Jesus of the Christ.
Right.
And if you look at Christ, Christa, Christo, Krishna, it's exactly the same name. It's just a different language. Therefore, they got confused. But in the Vedic system, the representative of God, the Guru, he is Shakshat Durit Tvena Samasta Shastra. He's given the same respect, not because he's God, but because he is a representative of God, and he's surrendered, he's agreed to repeat God's word without changing it. So the Father and the Son, if the Son is real Son, then when he says something that you taught him, it'll see the same thing, and the word is the same. So a real representative of God will repeat what God said. And not only that, but he'll do it according to time and circumstances, what the people can hear, what they're capable of understanding, or what they need. You know, in Islam there are laws also, like the Ten Commandments, and there's the Dharma in Buddhism. There's laws, you know, to keep us human. You know, and some of them are very, what we would consider to be gross. You know, don't have sex with your mother. We don't even think about it. But in some cultures, it's something that they do have to think about. So it's a religious principle, but we would call it a sub-religious principle. Nonviolence. It's a sub-religious principle. It's universal. If you read the qualities and items of knowledge given in the Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity, simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy and from the passion for honor. These transcendental qualities, O son of Bharat, belong to God and man and down. So imagine if you had a whole earth with everyone had those qualities. Oh yeah. It would be real nice. And that's what we're hearing about in the Vedic age. So it may not be possible, it isn't possible to take it back in time. Time goes forward and you can't buy it back, or you can't, you know, rewind. I mean, I know they're trying to figure out a way they could go back in time, but it's not going to happen. But we can, as individuals, take these principles and follow them and improve ourselves, and therefore improve those who come in contact with us. And therefore, according to these scriptures that we study, after Lord Chaitanya arrived, which is the last time Krishna physically appeared on the planet, which was about 500 years ago, from that time on, for about 5,000 years, there'll be a gradual increase of Krishna consciousness, and then it will reach a kind of peak of its influence, and then it'll start to diminish. And then after that time's over, that lasts about 10,000 years altogether. Then religious principles will go down to the point where, if you think it's bad now, don't stick around. Don't stick around. No, you don't want to see what it's going to be like then. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you very much for coming. Very nice to see you again. Hope to see you again. Maharaj Nabhi ki jai. Rsabhadeva ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktabinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Thank you. Tomorrow at 6:30 Central Time, USA. See you then. Hare Krishna.